Rugby is a game of passion, speed and power. Playing rugby is a great experience and a great talking point with people, and yet when asked what you do, when you answer, all you get is a glazed look of confusion. Unlike football, in which somebody naturally understands the meaning of attacker, midfielder and defender, if you say to someone you play prop or lock or outside centre, all you're doing is telling them a random selection of letters. So what I plan to do is help explain each and every position you can play across the pitch in rugby union, from the battlefield of the front row all the way to the speed machines of the wing. You will learn what it takes to play each and every position, for things like training and diets to injury prevention and tricks of the trade.
And this sorts the men from the boys. Pause, engage! And where they go again,
massive scrum and picked up now by Morgan. He rolls, tries to get it down, but it is a penalty try, says Nigel Owens. England have their try, the forwards have their reward.
Well, that's what they were going for. They didn't want a three-pointer or even an attempt at.
A rugby team consists of 15 players, 8 forwards and 7 backs. The flankers wear the number 6 and 7 shirts and are part of the forwards. They are placed in what is known as the back row, right at the back of the scrum behind the 2 locks and the front row, with 6 being the blindside flanker and being on the left hand side of the scrum, with the open side flanker wearing 7 and being on the right hand side of the scrum. But what is the actual difference between the open and blindside flankers?
I think, back in the day, the 7 was more of a fetcher. He was, a smaller character, quite quick, would be first onto ball, very disruptive, would chase down the fly half. Now, because the defensive systems are better, because the guys are standing further apart, the requirement of a 7 is to be disruptive, but to be a ball carrier, to be a destructive tackler, and to cause a problem at the breakdown. That's the same for your number 6, but in the modern game, people perceive the number 6 as more of a ball carrier.
6 is more of like a ball carrier and a banger, and a 7 sort of like chases, tends around and tries to get over the ball and slow the opposition team's ball down.
I actually prefer playing 7 at the moment, but I have played equal amounts of both really. In the sort of last couple of years, I've played more 7 than anything else.
Well, they both play both sides, but generally the 6 is the blind side and 7 is the open side. So I prefer 6 because it's just gives me a little less to do on scrums most days.
Well, I mean, again, if I'm playing 7 and I'm coming off the breakdown, my first job is to get to the breakdown first, is to clear the opposition number 7 out or anyone else out of the way and make sure I secure my ball. In defence, it's to either make a first up tackle or to get to the breakdown and be disruptive. As a 6, depending if a number 8 comes your way or not, you would probably be in defence, taking the tackle in the second phase. You would come around the corner and be destructive in that area. In attack, you're often the first ball carrier that's called upon to play, and then that's it really.
Usually in the lineup, the 6 is sort of your second primary jumper, so he's got to be quite aerial and have good hands. In the scrum, he just has to be like a strong scrummager and really help out the prop, and his sort of first job is scrumming, unlike the 7 who's trying to get away and trying to put pressure on the 10. The 6 can sort of just scrum the whole time. I mean, again, just looking to get hands on the ball, get carries, make big tackles when the opposition has the ball. The 6 is usually sort of your biggest, hardest tackler. Hopefully.
Mate, I mean, in the modern game, they're pretty equally the same. To be honest with you, there are different skill sets required. But again, you look at guys now in the back row that if you've got good line-out jumpers, and you've got some like Wasps, we've got a couple of tall guys. We've got Ashley Johnson, who's not very tall. But he's a 6, so he may find himself playing a 7 role off certain set piece. The back row just needs to be very adaptable. You need to play to what your team needs, as opposed to what the position dictates, really.
No, it depends what kind of system your team is running. But I mean, these days they say there's not too many out-and-out 7s left, which is like the faster, sort of somewhat smaller guys who really harass 10s and really get over the ball. A lot of guys these days sort of can play both sides, but I'd say to be a genuine world-class 7 would be harder. I mean, the S&C guys, the strength and conditioning coaches, you know, they've got the formula for that. They look after us that way, because obviously you can't be in the gym so much just putting on a whole lot of mass, like, you know, like the Type 5 guys. You got to stay somewhat mobile and lean and quick, because you're putting in the most miles and doing the most work. So, you know, you just have to listen to yourself, and, you know, some days if you feel sluggish and slow, or, you know, even it can go for weeks like that, you know, you might have to say, I've got to lose a kilo or two or trim down because I'm not getting through the work like I used to do. So a lot of it is just a balance and knowing your body and listening to yourself.
The balance is always in favour of the skill and playing. You know, the brute strength will get you so far, but then, you know, you need the skill, the finesse, the ability to play, and the understanding of what's going on, and that's something that people practice. I think you see guys who are unbelievable physical specimens, but then they fall away. You know, it's the guys that you know, have that skill, develop those core skills the whole time. So your breakdown work, your tackling, your carrying the ball, your you know, your handling that go all the way.
No, I mean, again, it depends sort of what method your team is using. If you're a slow, agile guy, but your team likes to scrum and maul, then, you know, you're probably not going to fit into the systems as well. Whereas if your team is, you know, a ball-playing team and you're the link man, then being small and mobile will be better. So really, it's horses for courses, and different players can, even just the weather can make it, you know, better for you through the winter, but another player might, you know, get better as the fields firm up.
I think I think you've got to be athletic, and by that I mean, you know, good ability to move. You know, strong and powerful is the key. I think you've got to be brave. You know, it's a position where you end up having to put yourself in pretty horrible positions a lot of the time. Yeah, and I would say fit is one of the key, you know, one of the key areas, because you know, it doesn't matter if you lack in certain areas. If you're fitter than the majority of other people, you're more likely to make the right decision, and more likely to be in the right place, which then you can affect, you know, affect something if your skill level's maybe not that high.
Physicality, work rate, toughness, just an ability to, you know, put your head and body in places that it really shouldn't be. But yeah, those three: work rate, physicality, and toughness.
I think when you reach a certain level, you tailor your training to yourself. But I think you've got to remember that we're in a club environment here, and that there is a lot of stuff that's done generically, and you've got to have faith that the conditioners know what they're doing. But I think as a player, having played rugby now for 10 years, you know, I know what gets me up for a game, what doesn't, what I need to do, and then hopefully you get the guys around you, spot the areas you're weak at, and then tailor your training to it. But I think you know, majority of the time now, training is tailored to the individual.
Yeah, I'd say the back five probably has pretty similar stuff. Gym on Monday and Tuesdays, full contact session on Tuesdays, Wednesday off, Thursday we do some power. The power day is the Thursday. That would be when we'd probably do more plyos and like Olympic lifts, whereas, you know, some of the props will still kind of lift fairly heavy because they'll want the strength for the weekend, whereas back row they don't really need to damage their muscles so much that late in the week.
No, I think if you're someone who looks after yourself, then you're pretty much given free rein. But again, you've got to respect the guys around you. There are people who are overweight, there are people who are not in shape, and, you know, you can't be, you know, you can't start serving pudding up there and expecting other people not to eat it. So, you know, when we're on Wasps time, or in a team environment, whether that's with England, the food and everything else is very controlled. What you choose to do outside of that is up to you. You know, I happen to have a particularly strict diet. You know, it's something that I enjoy, it's something I believe in, and yeah.
No, I mean, you're pretty safe to eat anything you want sort of before 5 o'clock, especially on, you know, Mondays and Tuesdays, early on in the week when you're still recovering from the Saturday game. You're just trying to get your glycogens back up and just trying to get the calorie intake. Obviously, towards the end of the week, you can sort of taper off some things, maybe some fats, but again, when you get in the middle of the season and you're just working so hard every day, you know, we're not trying to be fitness models here. It's okay to carry an extra 1 or 2% fat as long as, you know, a lot of it's just about feeling good. I'm not gonna, you know, not have a pizza on a Wednesday to, you know, make me feel better, like, you know, to make me look better. Like if I'm having a down day and feeling off, if a can of Coke and a pot and a chocolate bar brings me around, I'll just eat it.
I don't know the exact calories, but I eat 5-6 times a day. So I think, you know, we worked out for about 6,000, over 6,000 calories a day probably.
I don't know, we're probably up around like 32 to 45, like early in the week. I probably eat like 6 times a day, 3 big ones, 3 sort of small ones.
You know, listen, injury prevention is an interesting one. You know, you can't legislate for big trauma injuries and everything else like that. Things like pulls and hamstring tears and all that kind of stuff. You know, you can do a little bit of prehab. You know, a lot of mobility, movement, band work. You know, core work. You know, work with deficient areas. Obviously, hope that your physical medical team have identified those things. And you know, I think people foam rolling before exercise, wearing the right equipment, all that kind of stuff can help. And there's certainly stuff you can do to make your body more robust.
Yeah, we do some like prehab stuff on like ankles, knees, lower back. Some guys do some shoulders. Just not too much, 5-10 minutes every day. Just do some stretching and some stabilization for certain parts.
You know, I've worked around the world and I've seen some teams where they don't really warm up. You just get into it, ease into it, and then go from there. I've seen people who do a lot of static stretching, and I haven't seen a massive difference between that. I think as a player, you know, I need 10 minutes, 15 minutes to get myself in a position to perform. So that might be doing some warm-ups, loosening my hamstrings up, you know, doing some, we call it animal flow movements, but like opening your groin, opening all that kind of stuff up to go from there. Other guys don't need that. You know, I think it depends at the age, you know, your rugby age, because sometimes I'm 28, but I've been doing this for 10 years. I've got a lot older training age than guys, you know, maybe a similar age who haven't played as much.
Well, I mean, I think a warm-up's everything. If you sort of stepped on the field and tried to go 100%, I imagine you'd tear pretty much every muscle in your lower body. Certainly when it's freezing cold out, and certainly, you know, when you're probably, you know, most of us are carrying injuries right from the first game all the way to the last game. So we all take a little different time to warm up. You know, there's a lot of days where I don't even feel good until the last 5 minutes of the session, but you know, that's just how it is, especially in the winter, and especially when it's rainy and dreary.
I think that your perspective changes. You know, the first 3 or 4 seconds of a scrum, you know, it's about you pushing, making sure you're looking after the front row, and then your role changes, and then you're worried about the, you know, the carrier, what's your, you know, your next job, and it's, you know, it's defining the balance of making sure that you you know, you do your role, you'll do your scrummaging role to start with, and then you get on to your next job.
The way it's gone now, scrummaging, certainly it's an 8-man game. So if you're not scrummaging, your prop can really tell, and they'll give you a bollocking the next stoppage of play, or they'll sort of grab me and say, you know, I need a little more, keep me in, keep me up. So yeah, you're still quite involved.
Mate, I'll be honest with you, for me, I couldn't care less about Scrum. Like, it's something that they fiddle around with, you know, make a big deal out of it. If you ask props, it's a big mystery. It requires a lot of skill. It's 8 men pushing against 8 men, and you know, obviously people are trying to take advantage of that. So, look, for me, safety is the key. You know, I was there unfortunately when Matt Hampson broke his neck. Anything that will prevent an injury like that again, then what works out. I wouldn't know what the statistics are, but I think from the impression I get, less scrums are collapsing, which is the good thing. So they must be better.
I think, yeah, that they probably are working. I don't think as many scrums go down. Certainly not just where the way it used to go down, where they just hit and fold in. Now if they go down, it's usually someone's fault and they give them a free kick or a penalty, so it speeds it up that way. otherwise they don't really affect me too much, so I don't have too much to say on them.
No, not really. You encourage your prop, you stay with him as long as you can, but you know, if you get beaten, you get beaten. It's an unfortunate place to be, actually.
Well, I mean, certainly when you're on the right side, if their guy's trying to come around, we call it like tagging up. So it's where you sort of slip off your prop and drive your head into the opposing prop's like ribs and hip. Just try to keep them straight, try to maybe pop them up. And if you're going to lose a scrum anyway, you might as well get a free shot on someone's ribs.
Music is a big tool that I use. You know, I've seen a sports psychologist for the last 10 years. You know, the point is that back in the day, you could, you know, had 8 games a season. You could play 8 games on emotion. You know, this time around, you've got 30 odd games. You've got big, you know, you've got large squads. There's a lot of demands on players, so you need to make sure that every time you perform, you have a level. You sort of level playing field, and you're able to, you know, approach every game the same. So I use music, I use some notes, but that's what I do every time.
A lot of it is just like the technical part. I know the aggression and the physicality will be there. I just have to make sure I know my roles and jobs and the technical aspects. So I'm just thinking about, you know, line outs and certain plays and my role through them, and making sure I get my head over the ball and telling myself to be disciplined and not give away any penalties, stuff like that.
Every time, yeah. Because playing rugby at club level, it's rugby wherever you go. You need to perform the same way. It's just the stakes are higher and it's probably a bit quicker.
Only because internationally I'm more of like a leadership figure, so I'll probably be a little more vocal in the dressing room and try to get, you know, making sure some of the young guys are maybe calmer if this is one of their first games, let them know it's easy, motivating some other guys. Here it's sort of like, you know, we've got the other guys who do the talking and the rah-rah stuff, and I just sort of try to play my part. The best 7, probably Francois Lowe, down at Bath. He's pretty good. Garvey, my mate, he's a 6 down there. He's pretty good on his day. He looks like a prop though, so it's hard to miss him.
I think Richie McCaw, you know, is one of the best number 7s in the world, and has been for a long, long time. You know, he's someone I look up to. I think he's still fantastic.
Best 6, Samu Manoa down at the Saints. He's having a pretty good last 18 months or so. He's playing some fantastic rugby.
Number 6 has been a bit more of a difficult one, really, because I think that's just changed a bit. I think a couple of South Africans. I'm trying to think who's a very good number 6 at the moment. I mean, I think, you know, when Pocock was playing 6 for Australia and Hooper was playing 7, I would have said that, you know, Pocock as a 6. You know, if you could play Pocock and McCaw in the same side, that'd be pretty special.
Well, you know, Francois Lowe is probably just the strongest guy over the ball in the league. Berger as well, Jacques Berger at Saracens. He's pretty damn good as well. Those guys, they're just reckless and get their head over the ball and slow down all your ball and make it really hard to play, and just they're little pests that sort of get in the way. And Manoa is just a destructive ball carrier and huge tackler, and every time he seems to have anytime he's around the ball or in the play, he seems to make something happen. So yeah, he's coming on.
There you go, the flankers, number 6 and number 7. Keep looking out for other episodes of Scrummage to learn how to play all the positions of rugby union.